constraint is testing? Kind of
Presently, for them, the constraint is testing. I suspect that there's different levels of maturity in the room. So it could very well be in one of your organizations, the real bottleneck, the thing that has, that you need to pile on might be one individual who knows everything. Right? The one guy, the one person who you're always going to do all the troubleshooting. They get the tests on the product. So you need to think about what's the real constraint that we have now. How do we really make sure that we're not wasting its time and keep moving through that process so that you're able to reach there? These guys are pretty mature. They're focused on automating testing now because testing is the real constraint. They've gotten, right? They've gotten the piles of small batches are waiting for the big batches of testing. As they automate testing, they'll be able to integrate that in the whole process. And this is where at least their use of theory of constraints and even the guys who wrote the Phoenix project, their understanding also of theory of constraints played into how they approach that. Yes?
In that last slide, could you explain real quick the difference between DevOps and microservices?
In microservices? I can't, can you? I don't know.
Oh, it's just, I'll let you do
A
the
microservice.
from there, like Netflix and WhatsApp.
So it's what he just started talking about, which is beginning to differentiate between a big new project. Okay? And there will be big new projects for many companies, many organizations, right? For them, a big new project is the next big mobile provider that they go into, that they need to get the whole thing ready for deployment for the customer. Versus like a Netflix where they're just updating every day. They're not going in with a whole big new project that they will need to at least plan from a waterfall type of planning mentality, not necessarily big waterfall like we saw, but how to get the features, the deployment every day or every hour or every minute. Pretty sure that's what he's talking about. Okay? The real thing. So now, wrapping it back around to theory of constraints, the constraint of a project, and when we have new big projects, we still, from a business perspective, you're going to think about it as a project, right? We need to deliver something to the business that has a deadline for it. The longest path from the idea to the real value is really what determines the length of the project. We need to think about, and a lot of what we've done in TOC is something called, we do a lot of project planning. It's where a lot of the contribution from TOC comes with what we call critical chain project planning. And the ways in which critical chain project planning and execution has been utilizing the concepts of DevOps and of Agile has been, one, to challenge like crazy the linkages, the dependencies that we think of, right? The sequential dependencies. How much can be done in parallel? How small can we make the work sets so that we can keep moving the project through? And we've had situations where projects have been planned, like to develop websites for a huge consumer products company. Their initial plans and executions were taking 8 to 12 months per website, and they got it down to 8 weeks. Okay? By thinking through, do we really need these dependencies? How much can be done together? Can we get people in the room together from different functions, right? So the longest chain going from idea to deployment is really the constraint getting us to market or getting us to customer value. How do we shrink that? How do we really shrink that? And the thinking that's coming from TOC, from DevOps, from Agile is all leading to that. Okay. Now, if you have a real constraint, like with testing, or like with the guy who's just the place that everything gets done, you need to think about how you're really going to manage through that. Okay, so you may have all sorts of wonderful cycles in small batches leading up to that person, but they may, or that department or that function, but you may still need to put larger batches through them. But then as it's coming out from them, let the smaller batches continue. Yes?
Yeah, the model I was describing, actually, we don't turn it on until the whole thing appears. But this concept is going to be a little bit of, we're going to have to go upstream to our designers, to the people thinking about
Yes.
projects.
Yes.
And we simply sit down with them and say, okay, that's a nice big project you have there. Now, break it up. And break it up in valuable pieces. So that we can deliver it and it goes live. So take this one piece, so take this big project and think now in small pieces. No longer are we going to try to, we have this huge thing go live, but actually let's think about improving our site little pieces until we get there. And it's literally live. The pieces are live and they are forming this eventual destination.
Yeah. In TOC, we talked years ago. We talked about thinking about batches in two different ways. We talk about process batch and transfer batch. A transfer batch is the pieces that you're able to keep passing along, keep moving, right? Think about an automotive assembly line, right? The transfer batch from one station to the next is one car, right? One car at a time. However, the process batch of the line itself, because it takes a lot to get new models on the line and that kind of thing, but the process batch is, the transfer batch is moving from one station to another. The process batch is how many are you going to do before the line is changing over to the next model. That's many more. You're talking about the same thing, right? We've got many transfer batches all building up to the end, but we're not going to go to the next big thing until we finish this big thing. Yes? Because it's really, it's not providing value until the whole thing is done. I think we're about out of time, 3 minutes to go. I want to thank you all for taking your lunchtime and being with us. I think we need to, over time, let's make these much more interactive. I think we need to bring some games and some hands-on stuff and things that we can all participate in and talk about. And smaller subjects or longer time, one of the two, right? We'll make it in smaller batches. We have plenty of time to work together. I would like to make one plug. If you can put it on your calendars, the conference on September 7th, 8th is a combination of how industry and government are using theory of constraints. There's going to be a track on IT devoted to DevOps and examples. This guy Yoav from Amdocs will be one of the speakers. Both the authors of two of the three authors of the Phoenix Project will be speaking. One will be bringing Johnson & Johnson with him. Look at what they've done, and the other is going to be one of the keynote speakers. But for almost any aspect of the organization, really pretty powerful improvement methodologies. Tracks filled with really leading edge companies and government entities talking about what they've done, as well as hands-on workshops to take away some practical, what can we do tomorrow kind of thing. So take one of those flyers, go to the site, see the updates, and I hope to see you there. And maybe I'll see you again for one of these. Thank you so much.